Starting today, the government is set to open doors to allow prospective migrant workers to work in Malaysia after the representatives of Nepal and Malaysia signed a 10-point agreement to resume the stalled labour supply on 12th of September. Nepal had barred Nepalese workers to work in Malaysia for the past 15 months. This had affected at least 100,000 youths aspiring to go to Malaysia for work. Good morning, I'm Amit Bakurel and these are the top stories of this hour. Number of debtors failing to clear bank loans crosses 8,000, almost 3,000 more blacklisted in a single year. Bad loans amount to around 69 billion rupees. Government to issue labour permits to prospective migrant workers for Malaysia from today. The move follows a 10-point agreement between the two governments on 12th of September. Oil prices hit their highest in 4 months after two attacks in Saudi Arabian facilities on Saturday knocked out more than 5% of global supply. And Jeffrey Kamworor of Kenya smashes new half-marathon world record, finishing the Copenhagen road race in 58 minutes and 1 second. The number of debtors who have been blacklisted for failing to pay their loans and incurred interest to banks and finance companies has increased by 2,900 in the current fiscal year. The number has doubled compared to the previous fiscal year. Likewise, the total amount of bad loans issued by financial institutions has reached 68.8 billion rupees as of now. According to Nepal Rashtra Bank, the number of blacklisted debtors was more than 6,200 in the previous fiscal year. Last year, only around 1,300 were added to the list. The number of additional blacklisted debtors, however, has drastically increased this time around. According to the existing provision, debtors who fail to clear the loans for more than 1 year past the deadline are kept in the blacklist.
समयमा तिर्नुपर्छ भने चेतनाको अभावको कारणले पनि हुन सक्छ। तेस्रो भनेको चाहिँ के हुन्छ भने साना र मझौला एसएमई का चाहिँ ऋण लिएर व्यवसाय गर्नेहरूले कहीँ न कहीँ कसै न कसैलाई बेच्नुपर्छ। बेच्दाखेरि नेपालको बजारमा अहिले सबैभन्दा एकदमै डरलाग्दो अवस्था के छ भने बाँकी उधारो र उधारोमा चाहिँ दिनुपर्ने, त्यसले गर्दाखेरि त्यो उधारो चाहिँ टाइममा नआउँदाखेरि ब्याङ्कको कर्जा चाहिँ डिफल्ट हुने।
Although 6 out of 28 banks have managed to reduce their bad loans this time around, the overall bad loans have increased by 1.45% in the current fiscal year. Chairman of Nepal Bankers Association, Gyanendra Tungana, has however alleged the International Monetary Fund of failing to assess the bad loans of Nepalese banks correctly. Analysts are of the view that the drastic increase in bad loans and the number of blacklisted debtors simultaneously may indicate a haphazard distribution of loans by financial institutions. As many as 18 local governments are yet to unveil the annual budget even after 2 months since the beginning of the new fiscal year. The delay has not only hampered development works at the local level, but also basic public service delivery. The government staff recruited at the local level have been devoid of their monthly salaries due to municipalities' delay in allocating budget on time. Likewise, the lack of budget has adversely affected activities at the land revenue offices along with garbage collection and local level development works. For instance, the mayor of Kantipur's Madhepur Timi municipality is of the ruling Nepal Communist Party, while the main opposition Nepali Congress posed majority support in the municipality. The budget in the municipality, however, has been delayed due to differences between the representatives of the two parties, as both the sides have continued pushing for the respective agendas as per their vested interest. According to the Local Government Operation Act, it is mandatory for all local governments to unveil their budget by the end of the first month of every fiscal year and also inform the central and provincial governments about any development in this regard. However, according to the Ministry of Federal Affairs and General Administration, as many as 18 local governments have yet to hold the meeting of city councils to unveil their respective annual budgets. As per the federal provision, the central government does not have the right to make direct intervention on the activities of the local governments, which has had a dilemma in terms of jurisdictions in this respect. And time now for a short break. For more news, do stay with us. Welcome back after the break. The government will start issuing labour permits to prospective migrant workers for Malaysia from today. The meeting of the Ministry of Labour, Employment and Social Security agreed to do so after a 10-point agreement between the representatives of the two governments on 12th of September. The government had barred Nepalese to work in Malaysia for the past 15 months after finding out that agents were charging excess fees during free departure. More than 100,000 prospective migrant workers have been affected since the government's decision came into effect. Last Thursday's meeting has agreed to allow the same 36 firms that the government had taken action against in December 2018 to carry out health checkups of prospective migrant workers. Earlier, Labour Minister Gokarna Bista had barred the firms to carry out health examinations. However, the Malaysian government had been saying that only those firms had the required infrastructure to examine health through biometric test. The Ministry of Labour, Employment and Social Security has listed 36 existing and 122 new health facilities to carry out health tests. According to Joint Secretary of the Ministry, Ramprasad Himide, the Malaysian government has agreed to assess the infrastructure of newly listed health service providers from 1st of November. Employers will still be responsible to pay for the health checkups, cost of visa processing, and airfare as per the agreement signed between Nepal and Malaysia in October 2018. Representatives working to supply migrant labor force have been demanding the government to issue labor permits in previous invitation letters, which are still valid for the next 3 years. Activist and philanthropist who has been demanding reformation in the country's medical education sector, Dr. Govinda Kesi, has warned of yet another hunger strike with 7-point demands. Issuing a statement yesterday, Dr. Kesi has demanded the government to amend the Medical Education Act as per the previous agreement and returning back the fees illicitly collected by private medical colleges to students, among others. He has also called for annulment of the recommendation made by the Parliamentary Subcommittee to increase the student fees and number of student seats at medical colleges. Dr. Kesi said that he would resort to another round of fast unto death if his demands, including the previous agreements forced with the government, are not met at the earliest. It's time now for the international update. Oil prices hit their highest in 4 months after 2 attacks on Saudi Arabian facilities on Saturday knocked out more than 5% of global supply. At the start of the trading, Brent crude jumped 19% to $71.95 a barrel, while the other major benchmark, West Texas Intermediate, rose 15% to $63.34. Prices eased back slightly after U.S. President Donald Trump authorized the release of U.S. reserves. It could take weeks before the Saudi facilities are fully back online. State oil giant Saudi Aramco said the attack could cut output by 5.7 million barrels per day at a time when Aramco is trying to ready itself for what is expected to be the world's largest stock market listing. The drone attacks on plants in the heartland of Saudi Arabia's oil industry included hitting the world's biggest petroleum processing facility. The U.S. has blamed Iran. Saudi Arabia is expected to tap into reserves so that exports can continue as normal this week. And time now for another short break. For more news, do stay with us. In our public voice segment, we asked the residents of Sindhu Palchok district how easy has it been to receive service from the local governments after the election. Let's take a look at what they had to say.
Public voice.
काम लिएर हामी टाढा टाढा जिल्लासम्म धाउनु पर्थ्यो भने त्यसमा चाहिँ अब अहिले आफ्नै स्थानीय आफ्नै ठाउँमा चाहिँ भएको छ।
अलिकति तल्लो स्तरको व्यक्तिहरुले अलिकति गाह्रो पनि भएको मलाई महसुस भएको छ।
पहिला चाहिँ अब एउटा सानो कामले गर्दा पनि अब जिल्ला धान्नु पर्थ्यो, त्यो चाहिँ अहिले छैन।
It's time now for our segment, Public Pulse, where you text us with your opinion.
Public Pulse.
And the question is, what's your take on the local governments failing to unveil their annual budgets on time? And options are A, political dispute, B, vested interest of people's representatives, and C, indifference towards development. The voting is on. Type in it up there, select your option A, B or C and send it to 34001 to share your opinion with us. Now the sports news.
Sports news.
Geoffrey Kamworor has smashed the half-marathon world record, finishing the Copenhagen road race in a time of 58 minutes and 1 second. The 26-year-old's time, which is subject to ratification, was 17 seconds quicker than Abraham Kiptum's set last year in Valencia. Kamworor was competing in his first 13.1-mile race in almost 5 years, having prioritized setting a world record time over appearing in the upcoming IAAF World Athletics Championship in Doha. Slight rainfall during the race saw the Kenyans pace trough in the final quarter, but he maintained remarkable times throughout, completing 15 kilometers in 41 minutes and 5 seconds and 20 kilometers in exactly 55 minutes, both world best times. Arsenal blew a 2-goal lead to draw 2-2 with bottom of the table Watford in the English Premier League last night. The Gunners squandered a 2-goal half-time lead as defensive errors against cost Unai Emery's side and were lucky to leave Hertfordshire with the draw as Watford had 31 shots on goal during the game. In another match, Callum Wilson took advantage of an abysmal defensive performance from Everton to score twice in a 3-1 Premier League home win for Bournemouth last night. It's time now for our special segment, Off the Beat.
It is apple harvesting season in Mugu district these days. Apart from the diverse landscape in the region, watching the locally grown apples on the mountain slopes does provide a delightful spectacle. The apple farmers here have been quite busy picking the apples and storing them in Thalcha, Mitu, Pina, Kotila, Jigkhola, among other places in Mugu. However, the farmers have been hit by a lack of proper storage facility. Previously, apples from Mugu made their way to Surkhet, Nepalganj and Kathmandu, but this year the road network has been badly hampered due to landslides at several places in the Karnali highway. Apples are selling for 45 rupees per kilo in the rural areas, while 75 to 80 rupees per kilogram in urban areas of Mugu. Some 30 to 35 metric tons of apple are produced every season here. The Gokula Buzala Lake in Pasthar's Miklazong rural municipality has been renovated under the initiation of local residents. The lake with a new look has been enticing a growing number of domestic tourists in recent time. The area was just a wetland, but the locals have managed to give it the look of a lake by promoting region as Gokula Buzala Lake. The local residents in 2011 had demanded budget from the government, but the government had refused to fund the project. This led to the initiation taken by the locals on their own to develop the area as a 150-meter-long lake. Along with the lake, the locals have also put up resting places and homestay facilities for the visitors. This is Prarambha Dahal for Kantipur News Desk.
And before we wrap up, a reminder of the top stories. Number of debtors failing to clear bank loans crosses 8,000, almost 3,000 more blacklisted in a single year. Bad loans amount to around 69 billion rupees. The government to grant labour permits to prospective migrant workers for Malaysia starting today. The move follows after a 10-point agreement between the two governments on 12th of September. Oil prices hit their highest in 4 months after 2 attacks in Saudi Arabian facilities on Saturday knocked out more than 5% of global supply. And Geoffrey Kamworor of Kenya smashes new half-marathon world record, finishing the Copenhagen road race in 58 minutes and 1 second. And that's all for this hour. Keep watching Kantipur Television SD for more news and entertainment. Have a good day.